Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity Yoga. In lieu of answering a question from the jar today, I just wanted to address something that's been coming to my mind quite often. Of course, what always comes to my mind every day is, why the heck are you doing this, crazy lady? Why are you getting up in the morning, sitting down and listening to all these wise and fantastic teachers talk? Why are you writing notes? Why are you, reading every text you can on this subject? Why are you taking notes? I have so many books on the subject of spirituality, and again, I'll explain spirituality in a minute as far as what I think about it. Why are you doing this, and why do you feel like you have to come here and write in your blog about these things you're hearing? And why do you feel like you have to come here when you look like this after being sick for 2 weeks to talk about it? Like, what is up with that? Are you on some kind of psychotic mission? Like, those thoughts go through my head all the time, and all I can explain is that I do not know why I have to come here. It's like this compulsion, this fascination. I am completely mesmerized by all these teachings and these teachers and what they have to share. I am mesmerized with what I'm discovering inside of me as I do this practice that I've been doing for 25 years and then some. So my reason for coming here isn't so much as to explain the woo-woo-ness of spirituality. It is because I'm compelled and because I know that there's something compelling me, whatever that is. And I'm not getting into what that thing is or whatever. That's not my idea of spirituality. When I talk about spirituality, I talk about the science of spirituality. And to me, the science of spirituality is all about, the spirituality is all about being able to examine your own mind, examine your own human tendencies, to examine your own behavior while you examine other people's without judgment and with compassion and empathy, because what they're doing, you're doing, and vice versa, it's all connected. It's all about examining it, and therefore, that's science, because empirical science is all about empirical examination, is it not? We are looking at examination, we are looking at spirituality, we're looking at what's going on in our minds, we're trying to understand it. But in order to understand anything, we first have to start with our own minds and our own behaviors and our own reactivity and our own reactions, and understand why. Why is this stimulus that's going on in the outside world? And Pavlov and Skinner and, other classical and operant conditioning therapists have always talked about the stimulus and our reaction to the stimulus and why it's occurring and what can we do to change it, right? In behavior management. So why is the stimulus out here triggering something in me? And why, more importantly, do I think that it shouldn't be triggering me, or that it should be triggering me another way, or that stimulus is there for the little me's benefit, when, on deeper examination and deeper observation and deeper reflection, that is not about me, because this me that I created is a little entity, a mental construct. It's just a thought I created, right? I'm reminded, as I say that, of the beautiful story. I heard it again, and I've heard it several times before, but I heard it from listening to Michael Singer's podcast this morning. And again, I listened to somebody, it triggers something, I read it down, and I say I want to talk about that. And that was about the Senko and Just tree. Now, the story goes that, I'm not sure where, China, Japan, doesn't really matter. Zen Buddhism really originated in Asia, more so closer to Japan and Eastern China. But regardless, it's just one faction of Buddhism. This Zen master was teaching a student, and he was giving him, asking questions and answers, and the student was coming, every day, picking up all this information, absorbing the knowledge, and every time he absorbed something, like a tree, for example, he was using this knowledge to say, okay, that tree's been there for 100 years. It's a beautiful tree. It's an oak tree. I know oak trees have this type of root system. They have these types of leaves. These kind of animals like oak trees. And there's always this narration around the concepts that the Zen master was sharing with the students. So he was always very knowledge-based, always able to narrate his way around everything he observed. So we'd observe something, and there was always a story and a thought attached to it. And all the learning he was gaining from his Zen master was somehow coming into this knowledge, and it was all knowledge, or rote knowledge that he was regurgitating back whenever he saw whatever he saw that triggered these knowledge reactions. So one day he sits down in front of his master, and the master says to him, "My goodness, you're looking totally different today. What is going on?" He says, "I don't even want to ask you any more questions and answers." And then the student looked at him and says, "I don't think you have to ask me any more questions, and I don't have to do any more answering." And the Zen master kind of tilted his head to the side before the student had a chance to explain. And then the student went on, he said, "I was walking through the courtyard today on my way to you, and I passed the same tree I passed 1,000 times before, and this time it was just tree." Meaning that when he walked by the tree this time, there was no rote knowledge being regurgitated. There was no story around the tree. There was no thoughts around the tree. He had the full experience of the tree. He was not talking his way through it mentally or physically. He was simply experiencing the tree. It was just tree without any story. That experience took him to what is known as Zen, the emptiness. Shayanta is a famous word used in, I don't say famous, but a very common word used in Zen Buddhism, and it just means emptiness. But emptiness not in the sense of lacking, emptiness in the sense of spaciousness and fullness of space. So his mind was finally open to receive the tree experientially rather than as a thought stream with the story around it. And that's what spirituality is all about. It's about getting beyond the thinking mind to the experience. Daniel Siegel, you may have heard him. Dr. Daniel Siegel does a lot on awareness in his book, Be Aware. I just have the workbook now, and I was kind of offended when I first read maybe the first 5 pages, and he was talking about the difference between sensing and observing, sensing or experiencing and observing, and I kind of said, what do you mean? We experience when we sense, because I've always connected the two. But he made a distinction between the two, and it hit me today when I was listening to Michael Singer talk about the just tree Senkoan, that yes, we do. We have a difference between experiencing and observing. So we are observers. We are objective observers as scientists, because again, I want to bring yoga back to the science of yoga, because it is actually called the science. And it was known as a science back then, in 5,000 years ago when it first developed. So we bring it back to the science by saying we, as the objective observer, we're not putting judgments. We're not looking at something saying it's bad, good, right, wrong, should be or shouldn't be. We remove the dualism from it and just look at it objectively, whatever we're observing. And what we are observing is our own minds, our own experience of being human. So I experience my inner world just as much as I experience the world around me and my reaction to the world around me. I'm experiencing my, thoughts and feelings, my observations, my perceptions of what I'm seeing and feeling and thinking, my interpretations of it, my, sensory input, everything that comes in through my senses. I'm, observing it, trying non-objectively, trying not to place those descriptor levels on it. And I always thought by doing that I was being Zen. But there's another element to it. Because as I'm observing objectively, I tend to be talking about it in my head. Yes, I'm removing the descriptors, and trying to do it in a non-dualistic way, but I'm still creating story around what I'm observing. I have yet to walk by no, I have done it. I'm not going to say I haven't, but I've done it enough. Walk by a tree and simply experience the just tree of that tree. Just the experience of it within. There's no thoughts, no judgments, no labeling, no narration whatsoever. Just, you know, and yoga can take us there, because once we're there, we are fully open to the reality of life. We've taken our narrow focus off the little me. We've widened that angle, so we're experiencing all of life that we are given the opportunity to observe. We're still limited in the sense that my world is just existing on this little geographical area that I'm in right now. But I get the opportunity to open my awareness to all of it. Not only do I observe it, I begin to experience it. And that is what Zen Buddhism is all about. It's what spirituality is all about. And it's very much a science. It is very, very much a science. And that's why I adhere to yoga and this concept. So I have a very, very scientific mind. I really do. I need to, things have to make sense to me. I have to understand the evidence. You could come up to me and tell me you're a psychic, and I'm going to say, no. You have to prove that to me. You have to show me that. And whenever I see anything that might seem a little bit like coincidental, I have to prove to myself that maybe there is some serendipity, some energy underneath this that I'm not understanding. And the more I do that, the more I am seeing signs that I am getting the evidence in a very limited way, mind you, but a very fascinating way. So to prove that I am basically on the right path. And there is really no woo-woo in this, so it sounds woo-woo because it's so different from what we're used to seeing and used to understanding. Copernicus, back in the 1500s, when he first realized through his scientific observation that the sun was staying put while the earth rotated around the sun, rather than the common scientific belief at the time that it was the sun rotating around the earth, people thought his ideas were completely absurd and woo-woo. He was nuts, they said. And he almost gave up on his work of proving that because he was, concerned about the skepticism he was receiving and that sense of, condemnation and he was a scientist and he wanted to prove himself as a scientist, and he thought this was going to hurt him and his chosen field of work. So he was almost about to abandon his work. But if he would have abandoned his work, we would not right now be, seeing that the sun is a stable force that pulls the earth around it, and we would be seeing things totally different. So spirituality to me, and again I use that word very loosely, I see it as a science. As for spirituality, as for science, I see yoga a facet of science, just like quantum physics. Physics is one facet of physics, and physics is one facet of science. Yoga is a way of understanding the human condition. It is a way of understanding at a very deep level what we as human beings are capable of, both positively and negatively, and how we can best live these lives that we were given. So I just wanted to mention that's why I come here every day and why I rave on and on and on about this thing called yoga and spirituality. And I do want to really make that connection of science with this practice that I'm doing so that it gains the credibility that it really deserves. And I'm not the only one that thinks this way. I mean, you can look at, there's so many studies, science is out there studying consciousness now beyond my little mind and little thing I'm doing here. Please go to them and listen to those experts speak, experts with scientific credentials that I don't have, and listen to them speak and judge for yourself. Just try not to, you don't have to listen to me. First of all, don't get it wrong. I don't have any expectations you listening to me, liking me, any of that. I'm just doing this because I said I'm compelled to. But if you are interested and you want to know more, go to those people that have been doing it a lot longer than I have, that have the scientific credentials and who've studied consciousness at a higher level, and talk to them. Matthew Ricard, for example, a Buddhist monk who has a scientific background. I don't know if it was in molecular chemistry or what it was, but he has a scientific background, and he's a Buddhist monk now, and he speaks about higher consciousness. And you're getting it, you're getting the academic as well as the non-academic in his explanation, so it's quite fascinating. Then there's many, many other people out there as well. But anyway, I am going to sign off now because I am rambling again, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. Please have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.